Lagos Network Center, Ibim was introduced earlier, the former Commissioner for Information in Rivers and former Acting Managing Director of NDDC. Just a couple of points to also bring back from the conversations that we've had since Monday. Yesterday we had Professor Sophie Oluwole, of course, Professor of Philosophy at University of Lagos. And one of the points she made was to the effect that unity does not mean that there will be uniformity. That you must acknowledge our differences and then leverage on those differences. And one of the guests joining us from our Jos Network studios also indicated that Nigerians are not as divided as they are sometimes portrayed to be, despite the fault lines that already exist. But still, the question of national unity and stability just won't go away. Why is this so, Ibim?
Kingsley, I think that you have made one strong point, and that is the fact that unity may not necessarily be that we're uniform in our views or in the way we think. However, one of the key things that we must agree with is that when you have a lot of people with varied interests, varied orientations, varied cultures, varied religions, coming together to say we're part of a whole, then it's important that their voice is heard. And that's why Nigeria is a federation. Now, the question is, are we truly practicing federalism? Do the constituent parts have a say, as it were, in the functioning of the nation? And I think that's the kernel of the matter. It's the fact that everyone wants to feel like they have a say in the makeup of their country. Is the fact that every federating unit has to be made to feel like you have to contribute something, but also you can benefit something, so that it doesn't look like there's a lopsided arrangement. That, I think, is what has been the argument. But yes, I agree with you that Nigerians are not as divided as they seem. And how do I mean? I always say that when it comes to the sharing table, everybody is present. The Igbo is present, the Yoruba is present, the Hausa is present, the Ijaw man is there, the Goni man is there. I mean, when it comes to the sharing table, you see everybody present. So I think that the real problem is not about when people gather to share, because when there's a gathering to share, you don't find the schism of religion or ethnicity. You find those problems are therefore kind of imposed. And that's why I agree with those who say sometimes it's politically motivated. Sometimes that's really the problem. I think the biggest problem with Nigeria is that the man who is in Mushi and the man who is in Woji and the man who is somewhere in Jos, and all of those people are really interested in being able to eat. They're interested in being able to have electricity. They're interested in being able to have good roads. So they're interested in just having their country function. And believe me, if the country functions, they really couldn't care. And I'm talking about the regular man. So sometimes those who make all of this, who make all of the noises, as it were, are really the elite who, if they feel disenfranchised or they feel that they're losing out in the sharing equation, then whip up sentiments and plebeian mentality. So me and you and the regular man on the street becomes cannon fodder for a war that we have no part in. So I think that what therefore needs to, and it comes back to what Okuni was saying, the issue of institutions, strengthening our federating units, strengthening the institutions to ensure that we function. Because if we function, then we can begin to hold people more accountable. If we function as a country, as individual segments of the country, and if the institutions in the country function, then we'll have less and less of the kind of schisms that we see. And Nigerians would be able to speak just on the basis of the fact that I am a Nigerian, not I am from one tiny enclave in a part of Nigeria.
Again, if you want to talk about the constitution, you can go ahead, but a vision. How do we get leaders to envision a good Nigeria, to envision, a good subnational Nigeria, whatever levels they find themselves, so that the more we have many, shall we say that many Singapores and Dubais and elsewhere, then to be a more livable country, and perhaps, as some places have indicated, we have more unity and stability.
Kingsley, actually, I went back to the matter of how we engage as a people. And when you take a look at Nigeria, you know, one of the things that I find very interesting is the fact that we have this debate as to whether it should be strong leaders or strong institutions. And, you know, thankfully, you know, we saw the situation in the US just now when the white supremacists had this whole conflict. And the fact that some people stood up and said, we can't be part of this. We have a problem where in our country, you hardly have a situation where, and the ambassador made mention of it, where good men are allowed to function. But then the question is it really about the leadership or is it about the followership? There's always that question. Are people able to say no to bad governance? And you talked about 1979. I heard someone saying that in the 60s, that was Ken, I think, who said that there was no agitation in the 60s and 70s, and I smiled, because as far back as the 60s, and in fact before the 60s, there had always been these agitations. Nigeria had always had agitations. In fact, one of the reasons for the creation of 12 states was the agitations from the minorities. One of the reasons for the Willings Commission was the agitation. So where people who've always had agitations, the question therefore is, how do we ensure that we deliver services to the people? How do we ensure that Nigerians feel like they're part of Nigeria? And I do not think, honestly, comrade, and this is where I disagree with you, that it's about the Constitution, it's about the paper. Because all of the provisions, all of the laws are there. But how about implementation? It is in how we determine those who take decisions over us. It is in me being able to say that somebody hasn't done right, irrespective of whether he belongs to my tribe, my religion, my ethnicity, or whatever. It is about me deciding that I'm a Nigerian and I have a stake in my country. And it doesn't matter who is sitting at the helm of leadership. If he is doing wrong, I do my job. So whether I'm a journalist who is supposed to truly do reporting, can I do that reporting without the law of filthy lucre? Whether I'm a public servant who is supposed to move the files and advise the politician properly, can I just do the right thing and stop allowing money or the fact that I want to be part of the sharing determine what I do? At some point, Nigerians need to take a decision to get their country back. If I'm a pastor, can I please mount the pulpit and speak what the Bible says and stop preaching so that somebody can give me money? If I'm an imam, can I just get up there and do what the Quran says? Can Nigerians decide on their own to do good? Because ultimately, really, a nation is built by its peoples. And everybody must decide to have a stake. So, you know, sometimes the argument really reverts back to us. What am I doing in my little corner? Whatever it is, whether I'm a comrade or an activist or an individual non-governmental organization, whatever it is I call myself, am I doing my job? Because ultimately, all of us have a stake in this business. But
Ibim, I'm still staying with you, and I do, you know, appreciate your comments. But let me again ask, because Comrade Wale, you know, kept on talking about foundation, and the need to restructure it. And I'm asking, who are exactly are those calling for restructure? Because when you go to the market, for instance, you discover that no one really cares, you know, where you come from. All I want to know is that I want to buy my thing, and I want to know, you know, how much you're selling. And there's this kind of, you know, unity in the market, cohesion in the market, and nobody cares. So how does this restructuring benefit the people for whom you're fighting?
Claire, really, the point I have made when it comes to the issue of restructuring, I've said that the Constitution already provides for us to have a federal republic of Nigeria. So if we just operated federalism as it should be, I think that the conversations of restructuring can then come under that premise. But yes, I agree with you. The person in the market just wants to be able to go to market, make her money. And that's why I started by saying, on the sharing table, where all the big men sit down, whether in the National Assembly, distinguished senator, or whether in the executive arm, or whether when the big comrades like veterans sit, you know, when the elites gather together, there is no tribe or tongue or religion, and we all know this. So can we please just stop pretending that we really want to go our different ways? Because that is not the fact. And that's why when you see some of the agitations of restructuring, somewhere underneath, you find that there's a bit of political manipulation happening in one way or the other. So really and truly, what I think, and really this conversation has been had, that some of those who genuinely are calling for some kind of a rearrangement are calling is really for a true federalism. I'm a product of the Federal Government Girls College. I went to a federal government college, and what Nigeria taught me in school was that it didn't matter where people came from. Some of my best friends are from all parts of the country. I read the Quran for the first time in Federal Government Girls College, Abuloma, in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. I came from a Christian background. My grandfather was a priest. But my friends who were Muslims enabled me see that there were things in the Quran I could understand. And that's my point, that indeed our friends cut across. Our marriages cut across. So when people are talking, I think what people really want is, can we have a country that allows federating units and indeed individuals aspire to the highest levels? So it doesn't matter the color of, well, we can't talk of color, but yes, color of my skin. It doesn't matter my religious orientation. It doesn't matter the party I belong to. Can I just aspire to grow as a Nigerian? I think that really is the kernel of the matter. And if we can begin to deal with these things by allowing Lagos do what it should do and revert to the center, or Rivers State do what it should do, and strengthening all federating units, you'll be amazed that every part of this country has something to offer. But can we have the conversations properly and stop, ensuring that we keep the people in servitude by only the elite sitting down, gathering and sharing, and then after that making us fight ourselves?
All right, Ibim, thank you very much. Again, some consensus that we are having, the question of self-actualization, what the ordinary Nigerian needs. I mean, Claire, you asked the question, you go to the marketplace, or in fact, you go to school. I mean, what is it that they want knowledge, Your children want knowledge, and so on and so forth. They want equal opportunities. But I'm just...
The views of Ibim in Port Harcourt. Again, I'd like to pick up some quotation from The Trouble with Nigeria, according to Chinua Achebe. Tribe has been accepted one time as a friend, rejected as an enemy at another time, and smuggled in as an accomplice. That's Chinua Achebe. And you listen to the views of the cross-section of people from Kaduna. How do we begin to the process of national reconsciousness, if there's anything like that?
Glad you said if there's anything like that. I think that on this matter, quite frankly, we go back to something that the senator touches on, which again is always at the kernel of the debate. And this is a debate that will go on lifelong. Do we need strong leaders or strong institutions? I say we need both. But then when you're coming back, as it were, in an emerging democracy, and don't mind what we say, we're still emerging, then you do need to have strong leaders who actually show a distaste for tribalism, ethnicity, and religious affiliation. That is critical, because again, when it comes to matters like this, you've got to, trickle down. And I'll just say very quickly, Claire, that let's do a throwback to the Nigeria of before, because part of our problem is because we don't count, we can't account. All right, so let's do a throwback to the Nigeria of before. This is the same Nigeria where Lady Ojukwu, in the thick of the battle of the pogrom, Lady Ojukwu was escorted safely to Onitsha from Kaduna by who? By Kashim. So let's think about it. This is the same place where a Colonel Ojukwu gave free passage and protection to members of Ado Bayero's family. It's the same Nigeria. This is a Nigeria where a Faji said, no, I'll take a bullet. I will not let you kill my visitor. And that visitor was an Igbo man. We have to remember that it is the same Nigeria. So it's not like it is but what was the difference? The difference was that we had a group of leaders who saw Nigeria as critical, who were committed to a Nigeria, who looked beyond themselves, their pockets, to wanting a Nigeria that functions. And so, honestly, on this, I align with the senator who says, quite frankly, as leaders in our various segments, whether in civil society or in the media or in government or in the village or in the church, can we begin to stop preaching the gospel of hate? Because the leaders are the ones preaching it. The market woman in Wuse market or the market woman in Balogu market really doesn't care the color, the nature, your religion. They all sit down and they eat from the same plate. And when you come to buy, in any case, you buy and they don't ask you, where are you coming from? In the motor park, people sit down together. Nobody asks these questions. Or the little children in schools. So it is the leadership that fuels this unfortunate lines of division and schisms that we have. So I think, quite frankly, is at this point, I situate all of that back at the leadership. And when I say leadership, I'm not just talking political leadership. I'm talking political, social, community, religious, all right, leadership. So across all of the spectrum.
Right, Ibim, thank you very much. Let's Wale Okunoye.